Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our live cast from the sunny Brisbane in Australia, streaming live to your device from this beautiful city. Well, before we look at what's happening for that day, all the news that update that we have, let's take a very quick look at the weather for today on this 10th day of November of 2020. With that, let's welcome Dilraj.
Good morning, everyone. Weather forecast for the rest of today is maximum 26 degree. Brisbane area is partly cloudy with 5% chances of rain. Light winds becoming 15 to 25 km per hour in the middle of the day, then becoming light in the late evening. Fire danger is high. Sun protection is recommended till 20 past 3 and UV index is predicted to reach 10, that is very high. Till tomorrow, stay safe and have a good day.
And thank you very much, Dilraj, for that update. Well, right now, let's get into the news for today. First of all, let's take a look at what is making news today, and let's look at the top stories for today, courtesy of ABC.
In breaking news, there's been a major development in the race for a coronavirus vaccine overnight, with pharmaceutical giant Pfizer announcing its candidate is more than 90% effective. The World Health Organization has welcomed the news, saying a vaccine could be rolled out to the world's most vulnerable by March. Federal Attorney General Christian Porter says he's considering his legal options following an ABC Four Corners investigation. Last night, the program aired allegations of sexist conduct by Mr Porter dating back to the 1980s. Former Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull says he did not know about the allegations before he promoted Mr Porter to the role of Attorney General. Mr Turnbull has told Q&A he warned Mr Porter in 2017 about drinking excessively with young female staffers in Canberra.
I treated it as though it was a misjudgment, an error. He'd done the wrong thing. He'd been injudicious, whatever you want to call it. But there's a lot of stuff in the program tonight about patterns of conduct that I wasn't aware of.
In a statement, Mr Porter has disputed Mr Turnbull's account of the 2017 meeting and says claims broadcast by Four Corners are defamatory. US President-elect Joe Biden has unveiled his plans for dealing with the coronavirus pandemic. In his first appointment since winning the presidency, he's named the members of a new COVID advisory board. Mr Biden has also implored Americans to wear masks in public to reduce the spread of the virus, warning of a dark winter. South Australia's Coronavirus Transition Committee will today consider a plan for unrestricted travel with Victoria by the end of the month. The state's police commissioner has warned the plan will only go ahead if its eastern neighbour notches up a fortnight without any mystery COVID cases.
And there we are, the top stories for today. And you are once again welcome to this live cast of Chentex Multimedia, brought to you in conjunction with Brisbane Indian Times and Australian Indian Radio. Well, right now, as we know, we're talking about so much, and there will be lots of news that we will be going into in a minute. But it is Diwali, and it is wonderful that our High Commissioner has sent us a direct message for all our listeners and subscribers of Brisbane Indian Times and Australian Indian Radio. Here's what he has to say on the auspicious occasion of Diwali under these current very difficult situations.
Namaskar. I am indeed very happy to know that Brisbane Indian Times and Australian Indian Radio, one of the more popular media entities in Brisbane, have been serving the Australia-India community of Queensland since 2004. These are difficult times, and the media has an important role in bringing the community together and keeping its morale high. I am sure Brisbane Indian Times and Australian Indian Radio will continue to work towards promoting the well-being of the Australia-India community and strengthening ties between our two countries. I wish Brisbane India Times and Australian Indian Radio and all its subscribers a very happy Diwali. Dhanyavad, thank you.
And a very good message there from His Excellency the High Commissioner Hitesh Sharma, and especially directly to all our listeners and all our subscribers. That gesture is really, really appreciated. Well, if he can send us a message, so can our Prime Minister, and our Prime Minister has been putting out Diwali messages every year. Here's his message for 2020.
Day. Happy Diwali, everyone. This is a special time for the many Hindus, Sikhs, Jains and Buddhists who call Australia home, and for the hundreds of millions of more all around the world. At the time of the new moon, on the darkest day of the month, Diwali carries a powerful message of light dispelling darkness. Most years, we often think of this as something theoretical, a concept, rather than something that is lived or experienced. But this year, Diwali's message has a special significance as we respond to COVID-19. We're looking for that light amongst what has been a very dark year. This year, all of us have had to face the most dramatic shock in generations. Lives have sadly been lost, dreams have been shattered, livelihoods destroyed, education disrupted, darkness descending in too many places. But this Diwali, I say we have many reasons to hope here in Australia. This year, despite our worst fears, we have supported each other, we have encouraged each other, and we've stood together, even if we couldn't stand too close. We've drawn strength and inspiration from our medical professionals, our teachers, our cleaners, our aged care workers, retail staff, care workers, police, Defence Force personnel, our scientists, so many more, who have responded to the crisis with compassion and professionalism. And we have marvelled at our medical researchers, of course, working around the clock on a vaccine that nations like Australia are committed to sharing with the rest of the world. Yes, we've seen great darkness this year, it's true, but light overcomes darkness. There is light ahead, and there is hope, a common hope for us all. The darkness cannot turn back the light, nor can it quench our hope. And that is the message of Diwali. For many years I've had the privilege to attend Diwali celebrations out there in Parramatta or in Canberra or elsewhere. A sharing of food, colour, light that's so vibrant. This year will be different, of course, and it must be, as we deal with COVID-19. But I want to thank everyone for finding ways to keep the faith while also keeping our community safe and how Diwali is celebrated. I hope you're all refreshed by Diwali's sense of hope and renewal. At this Diwali, may the hope of our humanity that we have witnessed throughout this year dispel the darkness and the challenges that we all face. Happy Diwali.
And happy Diwali to you. As he mentioned that this too, that we are going through difficult times, and the good news about the vaccine that he said. I know that, this message has probably been said on some of the social media sites where others as well, but this is the original version, so you can get the good clear picture of that as well. Well, right now, if it is Diwali, what do we need to really do? As we know, it's time where people share gifts and share mainly sweets and other things as well. So, don't stress out. Woolies, the fresh food people, Woolworths, your local supermarket, is coming to the rescue, and they have put out some gift ideas together, how you can put them in a packet, and what selection you have. You don't have to have the lot, but you can pick from those ones. And explaining that pack is now our marketing manager, Dr. Charita Deshpande.
Namaste everyone. Welcome to this exciting updates from Brisbane Indian Times and Australian Indian Radio. We are really excited to our upcoming Diwali edition, which is due to be published on 14th of November 2020 on the actual Diwali day. So here we are presenting a gift idea from Woolworths. So Woolworths has presented us with a gift box as a token of love and appreciation. So thank you Woolworths for this. So we would like to present this as a gift idea which you can use for your friends and families this Diwali. So let's see what's in the box. So first we have a card which says wishing you a very happy Diwali from Woolworths. And then our festival day starts with a cup of tea. So we have Red Label tea powder, which is very popular. And then we have savory foods like Haldiram's Chatpata Dal, and then Haldiram's Gujia Sev, which are like savory and very popular brands as well. And then we have another Bhujia packet here which says Ancient Grain Twist. We also have some sweet things like premium cookies, and then this comes in the sweet one. We also have Bicano premium jeera cookies, and then we have the very popular Good Day biscuits as well in this packet. And no festival is complete, especially the Diwali, without the besan laddu. So we have Bicano besan laddus as well. What an amazing pack it is. And then we have Little Hearts, which is very popular back in India among the children as well. And then we have all-in-one Haldiram packet as well. So we also have samosas, we have khatta meetha packet, and then we have few decoration items which you can use during the puja or to decorate your house during Diwali. And no festival is complete without firecrackers. So we have some sparkles as well, and then children will really enjoy using these sparkles. So this is a gift idea by Woolworths, and then you can use it, you can gift it to your family and friends this Diwali. So we'll be coming up again with many more updates. Till then, stay safe and stay tuned on this segment. Thank you.
And as we know that all these items are available at Woolworths, and it's wonderful that they can put out a package that can be used by everyone, and it is so good to see that they're coming out and reaching out to the community, and of course embracing the cultures and festivals, and putting that mark and embracing, and of course making sure that everyone enjoys their festivals whenever they come, and stocking up with all those items and raising that awareness within the community to make sure that these things are available. Raising an awareness, I'm talking about White Ribbon as well. So there will be some videos which we will show later on. Not today, later in the week, because 20th of November is White Ribbon Day. White Ribbon in Queensland has been revived. Well, it has been revived in Australia, but Queensland committees are very, very active and doing a lot. So on the 20th, we're asking everyone to put a ribbon around your letterbox, so that that marks the because this year again there's not a lot of public events that can be held, and everyone's a bit cautious about people and mass gatherings. So that's why a lot of these functions will be happening either virtually or people will do their own things and then they'll put them on the websites. Well, right now, making news, well, that big news coming out of the Parliament, and Christian Porter and, of course, our own Alan Tudge ministers have been named there as well. So it is the Four Corners inquiry, and we are led to believe that the inquiry initially wasn't about this case or what's been happening or what's been reported, but rather once the investigators, the investigative journalists went there and they started digging up some facts, they found this to be more interesting. So they have put this out on Four Corners on Monday night, and there has been a lot of flack about it. Some people say it is not in public interest, private lives of people should not be there. But if you are a politician, you are at the Parliament House, it's not public. So, it's not private time, it's public time. You are a public servant, so, well, once this case started happening and it came on board in Q&A, Mr. Turnbull said that he had warned the Attorney General about his conduct. Let's hear from him.
At the time, I was aware of there having been an incident that had, got a bit of notoriety. I had the impression that, he was drinking too much, again, that he wouldn't be Robinson Crusoe in Canberra in that regard. And so I gave him some fatherly or avuncular advice, which he accepted, didn't argue with me, but you may be right, maybe I was too forgiving.
So as he mentioned that maybe he was too forgiving and carefully chosen words there as well, especially when the investigation is going. But he said that, what he saw on the Four Corners, that he knew not a lot about everything that was being said there. He said he did know about some of the facts, but he didn't know all the facts.
There's a lot of stuff about Christian Porter in that program that I did not know at the time, and frankly, I didn't know until tonight. So it is, but from my point of view, ministers should behave themselves, decorously when they're in public. And Jan makes a point about people, being able to have their private lives as they wish, and I think there's a lot to be said for that. The only point I made was that they should not have sexual relations with their staff. That has been, out of order in the private sector for, as I said on the program, I would say for at least 20, probably 25 years, if not longer.
So there you go. He makes his point there with his carefully chosen words. Well, right now, David Anderson following on, and he says that how the interview came about.
Are you able to explain why you consider this story to be in the public interest?
Senator, it brings into questions a number of things, and I will say that this story started as something else. The genesis of this story was with regard to women during the pandemic. The Four Corners team, the investigative team, were in touch with women that worked in Parliament House. What came back was not a request for this story. What people came to us with was concern over a culture, and a culture that was considered to be a toxic culture, that was otherwise characterised as a women problem, and allegations that are serious allegations that sat in there. And what that led to is the story that you will see tonight. Part of this story goes to the Ministerial Code of Conduct that the former Prime Minister, Malcolm Turnbull, who was in this story, when he made an announcement and put this in place, that is still an announcement now with Prime Minister Scott Morrison. And so it's an important story to tell in the public interest, because it goes to conduct of ministers of the Crown, to be held to the highest standard in society. and that's the nature of the story from where it goes from there. And it is, I think, absolutely in the public interest.
And as he mentioned there, that was the Senate Environment and Communications Legislation Committee. And of course, what was said there was that public servants, and especially ones serving for the crown, should be held in high regards, and their conduct should reflect that. And I totally agree with that. But of course, anyone's private and personal life is their private and personal life as well. But misconduct is misconduct. The investigative journalism there by Four Corners, and as we know, many a times they have ruffled many a feathers. Boy, I will tell you, yes, a lot. I think the first time I heard about Four Corners was way back in 1987 or something like that, when they were talking about the coup in Fiji, when there was something covered up by Four Corners, and the name of Miss Rosemary Gillespie came up at that time as well. And we found out about the investigative journalism that they did, and all the things that they do behind the scenes as well to find out all the facts and figures. Well, right now, facts and figures, let's take a look at, one of our other sponsors for the program today, GlobeNet Realty.
GlobeNet Realty. GlobeNet Realty has been the longest established, trusted and respected agency in its trade area. Washa Chandra, Director of GlobeNet Realty, provides honest and ethical service to her customers. If you are thinking of investing in Brisbane real estate market, or if you are seeking professional property management, then you should contact Usha Chandra today on landline 3865 4466 or mobile 0419 775 416. And for further updates, log on to our website www.globenetralty.com.au. GlobeNet Realty is your own local real estate agency. Situated at Shop 52281 Sandgate Road, Boondall. GlobeNet Realty. Real estate is our world.
And real estate is their world, and tomorrow they will bring to you the real estate update for the week and what's happening, the trends, what's happening with the finance sector revolving around real estate, and of course the property sales, listings, and capital gains, etc. So it's a very good segment presented by GlobeNet Realty on every Wednesday. Well, right now, moving on, this time, people have been trying out many things. So this is on a better, part and on a higher note, that when people talk about homes, people moving into homes, now there's been a trial, a test that has been put out where they have intergenerational care home. Well, we know that every morning all the mums take their little kids to the child care. And by the same token, there are a lot of grannies sitting in elderly homes with no one to even talk to. What would happen if both were put together? Let's take a look.
It's a far cry from the quiet of their own rooms. But residents from Maranatha House are embracing their noisy new neighbours.
You know you're alive.
It's the real-life application of a concept that stole the nation's heart on television.
How old do you think I am?
100.
No.
A permanent intergenerational care facility has opened its doors next to the existing aged care home in Wellington. It's the first of its kind in Australia. 82-year-old Pauline Cochrane has lived at Maranatha House for 16 years and has no grandchildren of her own.
It means a lot. It keeps us going, sort of thing, keeps us interested in what goes on in the place.
Guided by research at Griffith University, the centre will use games, reading and singing to combat memory loss and loneliness among residents.
A lot of residents go into aged care facilities and they become depressed. And their quality of life deteriorates.
Terry Frost championed the idea for the town, which until now didn't have any after-school care facilities.
Simply coming over of an afternoon with their carers and sitting on the veranda and watching children play. That is therapy.
The Aged Care Royal Commission has heard a lot about what's wrong with the system and why significant change is needed. The people involved with this facility believe it represents something much better for the future.
Watching the kids paint and them playing and everything, and the little ones coming up and asking, "What's your name?" It was really wonderful.
A new era of respect and dignity. Dale Drinkwater, ABC News, Wellington.
Isn't that wonderful? That's just so wonderful. Did you see the look on everyone's face there? There's just so happy watching the little ones do what they do, watching them paint, watching them play. Now, the only concern there would be from some of the parents who might be a bit concerned about health issues and, transmission of some diseases, etc. But apart from that, I think that's a very, very good concept, put them together. And I think someone has done a bit of research into the right area, and that is a wonderful news that's come out. Well, the second news that I'm going to pick for today is we know that our indigenous people, many times people talk about our First Nations people and say, well, why didn't they study? And, they can study, they can go and do what everyone else is doing. By God, they are trying. I have seen that firsthand that they are trying. It's not from lack of trying, but it is the culture and the way. And of course, the community has a lot to answer for that as well, because of the way they have all been treated in the past. But past is past. Moving forward now, the youngsters are willing to even travel long distances to make sure that they have education. And here's that story, and even though they do travel away from home to get the studies, they do miss their homes and they miss their cousins and getting together with all the gang.
Being a teenager is hard enough, but these girls are growing up hundreds of kilometres away from their community and culture.
I miss being around my mob, like my cousins, my aunties, uncles, because family is important as well in my life.
16-year-old Riley is from a small town in northwest New South Wales, but this year made the tough choice to move to Sydney.
I miss mum and dad. Phone calls aren't enough.
She's boarding at the Byalla Girls Hostel and attending the local public school, hoping that will help her get into university.
My mum doesn't want us to make mistakes in education, and she wants us to have a good life and not a life of struggle.
Where I come from, you don't get a better education as you would if you came to the city.
The boarding house tries to celebrate the girls' heritage and connect them to local elders. Many make the choice to leave with the hope they could one day give back to their people.
I've only come here so then when I go back home I could be a school teacher up there. It's just a sense in me that I need to help other people, so becoming a nurse would definitely fulfill that, yeah.
I just want to be that person to make a change in Aboriginal communities.
Indigenous families in regional or remote areas where there are few, if any, secondary school options are instead turning to boarding school. Figures suggest there's been a 50% increase in the number of Indigenous boarders just in the last 5 years.
But research shows the transition to boarding for Indigenous kids is tough, and sometimes there's a high dropout rate.
We've recently done a study with a community in the Northern Territory. Young people were very, very isolated when they went away to school, and most of them actually dropped out within the first year.
These girls are sure they made the right choice and are rising to the challenge. Isabella Higgins, ABC News.
Another good story there, and as you see in the very, very sacred smoking ceremony, which is very, very sacred to their heart. Well, it is a good story, but right now let's go overseas, as I'm mindful of the time as well. And if we look at what's happening in America, is Mr. Trump in denial? What's happening? But of all these things, what would be the implications for Australia?
Hostilities had broken out when Malcolm Turnbull asked Mr Trump to honour his refugee resettlement deal made. This was the worst call by far, the president's quoted saying.
The Trump years have provided a wild ride for Australian Prime Ministers and for the country.
We've been allies for 99 years.
From Malcolm Turnbull's desperate attempts to keep a refugee deal on track,
Prime Minister of Australia,
to Scott Morrison unwittingly finding himself part of a Make America Great Again rally.
USA! USA!
The defeat of Donald Trump and the victory of Joe Biden raises some obvious questions for Australia about the policies of our most important ally. But there may also be ramifications for the way politics itself is conducted in Australia.
We are going to keep on fighting.
The apparent success of his bellicose attacks has tended to embolden the culture wars fought here, particularly by News Corporation. And the wrath of some of its warriors with Trump's defeat is palpable, with Andrew Bolt writing,
"Conservatives around the world will pay for Trump's fatal flaws."
But it's important to note the difference between a personal vote against Donald Trump and an actual shift to the left in the views of US voters. As the New York Times wrote on Sunday, Joe Biden made the president's character central to his campaign, but voters sent a more uncertain message about Mr Biden's left-of-centre platform, with Democrats losing seats in the House and gaining little in the Senate. The still massive vote for Donald Trump as the unlikely hero of the underdog shows how he had tapped into a disillusionment built on growing inequality and alienation in America, and that will not go away. Those pressures, as much as the numbers in Congress, will force Joe Biden as president to stay in the centre ground. And the problem is that Donald Trump has made an aggressive anti-China message part of that politics.
One of the things that's constrained the extent to which China has been really prepared to push hard at the United States under Trump is because they're never quite sure how he'd react. I think Biden, they'll be more confident about how he'd react and will be therefore more willing to take risks. And I think that does in some ways make the next few years more dangerous.
As President-elect Biden put it when he visited Australia as Vice President in 2016, "Thank you for having America's back, and we will always have your back."
Australia has actually quite pointedly not followed the Trump administration on some key issues. It hasn't described China as a strategic rival in those terms. It hasn't been prepared to condemn the Communist Party the way, for example, Mike Pompeo has wanted us to do. It hasn't been willing to undertake freedom of navigation operations as Washington certainly wanted us to do. So in quite a few places, I think we have been half a step or three-quarters of a step behind Washington. The sense in which we're exposed is a sense in which we continue to expect that Washington will somehow find a way to push back effectively against China and to preserve its place as the leading power in Asia. And I think that under Biden, that's going to be as hard to achieve as it was under Trump, simply because China is these days too powerful.
But while the tone may be less belligerent, the complexities of dealing with China will be just as great for the new administration.
Climate change is a real priority for Biden, and he must work with China. I think he understands that he must work with China to make progress on climate change globally.
Matt Keane is the New South Wales Environment and Energy Minister. Today he launched an ambitious plan to subsidise lease payments to host new renewable energy infrastructure. Another case of the states going it alone on climate change.
The election of Joe Biden as President of the United States just shows where the rest of the world is moving. Today, 70% of Australia's trade has now committed to net zero emissions by mid-century. This means that the markets that currently underwrite our prosperity are going to demand different types of goods and services from Australia.
A change of government in the US, but not a change of problems for Australia.
And that is so true as well. Well, right now, looking at that US election, the significance of the election in terms of Kamala Harris. There have been plenty of unprecedented moments in this US election race, but one momentous event is the election of America's first black and first female vice president who is of Indian origin.
Eddie Glaude, how significant is it for the United States to see its first black female vice president in Kamala Harris?
It's amazing. It's extraordinary. It's not only black, female president. I mean, she's a child of immigrants. It's important for young girls across the country. When I look at Kamala Harris, I'm thinking about, the Atlanta washerwomen in 1881 who engaged in a strike, right, to get higher wages. I'm thinking of the Women's Political Council who were central to the Montgomery bus boycott. I'm thinking of Ella Baker and Fannie Lou Hamer, all of these women who were so important, women of color, black women who were so important to expanding our democracy. She's the inheritor of their sacrifice. But we cannot get lost in representation. We've been down that route with Obama for 8 years. We need to understand her symbolic importance, but we also need to understand the significance of policy to address the problems that our communities face.
What do you consider the most pressing challenges for Joe Biden?
We face a number of different problems in this country. One, of course, obviously is COVID-19 that is devastating America. By some projections, by the time Joe Biden is inaugurated as president, we will have upwards to over 400,000 Americans dead. So he has to address coronavirus, and in doing so, he's going to have to address the inequality in our healthcare system, because black and brown people are dying disproportionately. Poor people are dying disproportionately from the virus. So I think Biden has to respond at scale, right? So with the virus, with the economy, and with the racial reckoning, all in some ways kind of pressing in on the country. And then when you combine with all of that with this reality, and that's the reality of selfishness, right? There are too many Americans who have in some ways given up their stake in American life for their own selfish ends. And they are unwilling to commit themselves to a notion of the public good. So he's going to have to deal with these existential questions on top of these policy questions.
But you're a country built on individual rights and personal freedoms. Is the flip side of that perhaps self-interest and selfishness?
Right. When liberty becomes a synonym for selfishness, though, we're in trouble. Then we're not citizens in community with others. We're just individual persons in pursuit of our own selfish ends and aims. And a democracy can't survive that, it seems to me.
Well, that's where the language and conduct of your president becomes absolutely key.
Absolutely. So, we have, 73 days between now and the inauguration. What will he mobilize? What will he do? I'm not sure. But we do know that 70 million plus Americans voted for him, in spite of his incompetence vis-a-vis COVID, in spite of the mendacity, lying every single day, and in spite of the corruption and graft that has defined the administration. And so we have a lot, how can I put this? We face a crossroads in the country. American democracy stands on a knife's edge.
Eddie Glaude, thank you.
Thank you.
And that's quite rightfully and a great analysis there of the situation. Well, their system is quite different to ours, where they have the election now and the inauguration and everything way later on. Well, right now it's been wonderful having your company once again. Before I leave you, we'll very quickly take a look at what of the functions and events that are taking place. Remember that a lot of functions have started taking place physically now. They're happening virtually, but they're also being live streamed so that people can join in. Here are the list. So, ladies and gentlemen, with that, it's time to say goodbye. It's been wonderful having your company. And as I said before, that don't forget that if you wish to, have your message brought onto the show, we would love to have you and bring your message on the show as well. And don't forget that on Diwali Day, we'll have lots of messages and lots of people, passing on messages to their loved one, to everyone that love. You too could be part of that. Just call us up, send us a message via Facebook or whichever means you can email. But be in touch, and we would like to bring you on the show as well and talk about that. As we know, there's a different days of Diwali. We'll begin that explanation from tomorrow. And as you know, the Brisbane Indian Times is in the press, so it will be out this week. And of course, it's a Diwali issue. It is a bumper Diwali issue. It's so good to see that so many people have sent in their messages. A lot of politicians from both sides of the politics have come. So, Brisbane Indian Times has the bipartisan support. So, it's getting news and articles and ads from all parties. Of course, there's Prime Minister's message there. There is also the message from our High Commissioner, and there's lots of personal messages in there as well. So make sure you pick up your copy. Look, in recent times, because there were lots of outlets that were closed, or some of them are reopening. If you have problems getting your hands on a physical copy, please do call us and we'll let you know where your nearest outlet is. As we know, some of the outlets had copies sitting there for a while because they were closed, and others had run out. So always we have to readjust the numbers which go to which outlet and where they go. So we have to monitor that on a month-to-month basis and make sure that we have enough papers at outlets where they are needed and where people actually go to pick them up. So with that, it's goodbye. As I said before, it's always wonderful to see you. It's so good that you can join us. Until tomorrow is goodbye from me. Enjoy the rest of the day. Tuesday night for me is my temple night. So, if you want to catch me, you'll find me at Gayatri Mandir Bundal tonight and every Tuesday night there. And you can come watch me play the tabla. See you then. Until tomorrow, remain safe.